Good evening, I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. Our big story tonight, the fight against female genital mutilation, FGM, has received a formal onslaught from a proponent of the cut who is now fighting it in the courts. A trained doctor, and a woman for that matter, has gone to court challenging the prohibition of the FGM Act of 2011 that criminalized the culture of cutting a woman's genitalia. Dr. Tatu Kamau says the push to abolish the law is driven by her desire to see equality in society. She says that culture, religion and other social elements are at risk if Parliament is allowed to continue to clamp on them through arbitrary legislation. She argues that women should be allowed to make the decision to have the cut or not. And when they decide to have it, they should be afforded the best medical help to have it done. But it's not a secret that even after FGM was banned in Kenya nearly 7 years ago, it is still being practiced in large swaths of the country, with young girls being the sole victims. So tonight we ask, how will Dr. Kamau's efforts protect the vulnerable girls? The case was mentioned today at Machakos High Court, with another mention date slated for the 26th of February. Let's now listen to Dr. Tatu Kamau, who clearly is scared that Parliament will erode our cultural fabric.
As a woman, I feel I'm even threatened. If Parliament can decide what I should do, what I shouldn't do. If Parliament can abolish a culture or try to abolish a culture, tomorrow it will be a religion, tomorrow it will be something else. I think we should take care of issues like this. I feel this act has set a bad precedent of trying to sort of, micromanage our culture.
In studio tonight for this conversation, I have Mercy Chege, who's the program director at Plan International. I'll also be speaking with Charles Lepantas Leshore, a project assistant at AMREF, and a champion against FGM. Our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna, is at our city centre studio, where she's standing by with Lina Jabi Kilimo, who is the former chairperson of the Anti-FGM board. But first, Sophia, good evening. Give us the details of what took place in court today during the mention of this case.
Good evening, Yvonne. Indeed, after very many years, of course, of efforts to fight against this practice that has largely been termed as retrogressive in the country, this new challenge has emerged today with the petitioner, Dr. Tatu Kamau, moving to the High Court in Machakos earlier today. And she argues that the anti-FGM law is discriminatory. She terms it as unconstitutional, says it's untenable and must be done away with in order to safeguard the rights of women, arguing that cultural practices are enjoyed and are actually highlighted in the Constitution. She talks about the female genital mutilation should be seen as female circumcision, and that for adult women who consent, she's clear about that, should be allowed to go through that process, just like the men are allowed to undergo circumcision. In fact, earlier when I was Timothy Otieno spoke to her, she did talk about women can smoke, others can drink, they can join the army, and that in that same breath, women who desire to undergo this cultural practice then should be able to do so. So she says this Prohibition Female Genital Mutilation Act 2011 then discriminates against those who want to do and undergo through this process. She also wants the board that has been put in place, was put in place in 2013, to ensure that word is spread around the country in as far as these practices and the dangers. She wants that board disbanded, saying that in the same breath with this law being unconstitutional, then their work as well becomes one that cannot stand. And I'll be speaking a little later to the former chair of that board to hear her thoughts on this. So she's suing the Attorney General as well as the board, that's the Anti-FGM board. They are the second respondent. Several parties earlier today, including AMREF Kenya, who sought to be enjoined in the suit. That status was granted to them, around 5 interested parties. And what will happen now is that they have been asked by the judge to write their submissions. And by the 26th of February, the High Court in Machakos will then give guidance whether going forward this matter will actually be done away with, thrown out to be found to lack merit. If it's found to have merit, then it will go on to full trial. So, Yvonne, this is a woman, another very critical point in her petition, and doctor who argues that how she sees this tenable is that it can be medicalized, in the sense that one of the greatest concerns in fighting FGM have been those practices being done using these crude weapons, especially the grassroots areas. So she argues that in law it should be captured that it will be medicalized, that only a qualified doctor who knows the dangers and understands the body and will therefore do no harm to a woman should be able to undertake the same. But it's also important to note that, Yvonne, despite FGM being illegal in Kenya last year, a report by UNICEF did indicate that it rose by 41%. And of these 41%, majority of them are girls aged between 12 and 18 years. So it's a conversation important to have at this point. It's illegal, but is there progress being made? Is there merit in the proposal and now petition by Dr. Kamau? So we'll talk a little bit more with Honorable JB in just a bit, but let me bring it back to you to take us through some of what the law says.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Sophia, for that. Understanding what happens next with the process in court. But before you can speak to Madam Jabi Kilimo, who I'm sure has a lot to say about what just took place in court today, let's take you, our viewers, through the Prohibition of Female Genital Mutilation Act of 2011 and how it contrasts with what Dr. Tatu Kamau is advocating for. So, this act 2011. Remember, it was actually banned in 2001, but the law came into effect in 2011. Now, let's just take you through some of the offenses under this act. The performance of FGM by medical personnel or trainees is prohibited under Articles 19 to 20. And then Article 28 of this act also prohibits the performance of FGM outside of Kenya's borders by medical personnel or trainees who are Kenyan citizens or permanent residents of this country. Article 21 prohibits cross-border FGM. Article 22 allows the use of prohibits the allowing of a use of a place or a premise for FGM. Article 23 deals with those who are found in possession of tools or equipment that are used to perform the act. Article 24 also deals with the failure to report the offense, whether planned, ongoing, or committed. And obviously, Article 25 is of the use of abusive language against people who have not undergone FGM, effectively trying to remove the stigma that would be associated with it. And the penalties are quite stiff. Article 29 spells this out of the act, calling for an imprisonment for a term of not less than 3 years or to a fine of not less than 200,000 shillings or both, and offers an imprisonment for life for those who cause the death of an initiate, imprisonment for a term of not less than 6 months or to a fine of not less than 50,000 for both the person who ridicules a woman who has not undergone the cut or abusing a man who marries or supports such a woman. Now, what is Dr. Tatu Kamau asking for? It is important to let you know that she is a medical practitioner with 26 years of practice, and she is the one who is seeking to legalize FGM. The case has been filed before Justice Kemei at the Machakos High Court. She wants the court to declare as unconstitutional the Prohibition of FGM Act of 2011. Sophia has already outlined some of these, talking about how it is discriminatory, and according to her, banning the practice is tantamount to embracing Western culture and disregarding local practices as inferior. And she says she wants a declaration that the Kenya Anti-FGM Board is improperly constituted. We're talking a little bit more about this, and you'll be hearing from her. That was an interview that was done earlier today in court, as well as with my guests. But first, a reaction from the founder, chair of the board of the Anti-FGM. So I take it back to you, Sophia.
All right, thank you, Yvonne. So we have with us the founder chair of that board. That's the Anti-FGM board, the board that Dr. Kamau once disbanded in light of her petition at the High Court in Machakos today. Thank you so much for making time for us. It's great to see you. Let's begin with your thoughts on this petition, that the doctor, number one, we begin with her argument that it's against the rights and it's discriminatory to the women who would actually want to undergo female circumcision.
Thank you very much. First of all, Dr. Kamau should be able to tell us when she was taking oath during graduation, because to be a doctor, she must have graduated from a university. Now, can she tell us it was discrimination when doctors are told to take a different oath from those who have done other disciplines? For example, doctors and nurses or medical practitioners, during graduation, they take a different oath. And one of the things that they say is that they promise not to violate those fundamental ethics. And so that is where I want to start with her. Secondly, Dr. Kamau, I didn't see her wearing old-time clothes, you know, hides and skins. She was dressed like all of us, meaning that she accepts that culture is dynamic. It's not static. The same constitution, she's saying that it's not constitutional about FGM, talks about our culture being accumulation. It's cumulative of our development up to now. Right now, we no longer have the cultures that we used to have a long time ago, because over time, it has evolved. Until now, our culture is we are dressing, we are taking our children to education. It has become a norm now. And what you do over and over becomes your way of doing things, and that is culture. The other thing that Dr. Kamau is not aware of, and I think she's not aware of, that is violation of the women's rights. Would she allow her child to take poison because it is his right to take poison? And so it is the country or those in authority, and of course they rule using the constitution to ensure that you are safe, to ensure that your human rights are allowed for you to practice. And what is the human rights of, basic human rights of a person? To be safe from harm.
To be safe from harm. And you mentioned about children. She's categorical consent to women who want to undergo this process. And I've been to West Pokot, attended an event on anti-FGM, and some of the women who talk about they want to go through it because if they don't, the kind of stigma they go through at the community level is one that makes them say, I'd rather go through this. So what do you tell those women who actually want it?
In fact,
she's advocating for
in fact, Dr. Kamau, if she had gone to read ahead after Article 21 and reached Article 25, where you have women saying they want to undergo the cut because of discrimination. They just can't allow, for example, some of the reasons why women come out and say we want to be cut because of discrimination. There is a lot of derogatory language used on them. You are not allowed, for example, let me start from Elgeyo Marakwet County sometime back in 2013, where women were not allowed to feed their sons who had undergone circumcision. And for that matter, circumcision is good for the men because it's only a skin that is being removed. While for women, it's mutilation because they are removing a normal organ. And the one for the male has got good medical side effects. I mean, the effects are good for medical for their own health than vis-a-vis for a woman. The other time in Narok, this year, I think around December this year, about 50 women subjected themselves to the cut. Why? Because their marriages were going to break. If you ask those women sincerely, they are just being forced because they want social acceptance. And this is what we are trying to say now. We want women to be accepted the way they are.
But she seeks to cure that by proposing that it be medicalized so that the dangers that are presented in female genital mutilation using these crude weapons and all manner of unexperienced individuals at the grassroots level should not happen, that it should be in law that only medical practitioners are able to,
then definitely it's already ruled in the favor of those of us who are advocating for the elimination of FGM. Why do I say so? Yes. Because by the fact of by saying that she wants a medicalization of FGM, then she's aware of the adverse health consequences of FGM, like loss of blood. What she may not address now is the psychological consequences of that. That means she knows that FGM is dangerous. That's why she's saying, let us medicalize it. And according to her as a doctor, which I'm really embarrassed that a whole doctor who took an oath of do no harm now wants to harm women. The law cannot allow you to hurt yourself. You know, when somebody hangs themselves, a grown-up for that matter, let's not talk of children. You hang yourself and you don't die, you know you'll be accused in a court of law for taking your life. But it is the same principle here.
Do you find any merit in what she's saying, her proposal? So on one hand, she argues it's a consenting adult, a woman who would want, okay? That's on one hand. Number two, she agrees with you. We do not want to bring harm to this woman, so let's medicalize it. So perhaps can this law be amended if going forward, we'll see how this matter proceeds in court, but is there room to be able to still cater to those who want to practice this?
What I said about our culture being dynamic. Yes. And so no way, Sophia, you can say that we take care of our children until they reach 19 years, and then we throw them.
But be that as it may, with the law in place, yes. I talked about a UNICEF report last year, the cases going up by 41%, and majority of that being girls aged between 12 and 18 years. Yes. So we are still losing that battle in a sense, so that where we are, is it working? Do we need a rethink? Do we need to perhaps be embracing some of what Dr. Kamau is talking about?
And none of what Dr. embraced at all, because that is a violation of the rights of women. Right of not feeling any pain. You're not supposed to feel pain. Yeah? Like the law says, unless it is for medical reasons to save your life, that is when it should be done. She should be able to tell us, and I still say that she should tell us how can we overcome some of these myths. All right. Yeah.
So you believe the law should stay?
Should be in place. I want to thank the 10th Parliament, where I served, for passing this law, so that it is a hybrid of the Children's Act and the Sexual Offences Act. Okay. Yeah, so that we can call FGM by what it is.
All right. Thank you so much for making time for us. Honorable Jabi Kilimo with us here on The Big Story. Yvonne, some of her thoughts on this petition. Of course, a matter live before court, and we'll be getting to hear more as the various parties submit their written submissions and the judge giving guidance next month. Yvonne.
Thank you, Sophia Wanuna and Honorable Jabi Kilimo. We thank her for her time on the show today. I want to go to my guests first, but I think it's also important to hear from Dr. Tatu Kamau once more, who's pushing for the FGM Act to be abolished. But she says she's not too worried about the girls. Listen to what she had to say today.
I'm not interested in the girl child. A girl has to be protected in their decision making and should not be forced to do things which maybe they are not prepared for. So for the girl child, the Children's Act can continue to protect the girl child so that the child is not put under undue pressure to change or do things that they won't want to do, or that might be done in a harmful way, and the child has got no way of, having any recourse to.
Dr. Tatu Kamau, who has filed a case at the court seeking to abolish the Anti-FGM Act of 2011 and, in effect, legalize it. So tonight, let's talk to Mercy Chege, who's the program director at Plan International, and Charles Lepantas Leshore, who's works with AMREF and is a cultural nurse and Maasai elder. We thank you both for making the time to be with us. Mercy, I'd like to start with you, your reaction to the case today, and indeed to a number of the comments that Dr. Tatu Kamau has made. She says this is not about the girl child, but this is about older women who would like the opportunity to be able to choose what they want to do with their bodies.
Thank you, Yvonne. I think Dr. Kamau is right on one thing, that women and girls need to be given the right to decide. But now she seems to be deciding the wrong things for those women and the girls. So for me, I say that the girls, and especially those below the age of 18, they need to be given that opportunity to make their own decisions without us having to direct those decisions by implementing some cultural aspects that might be detrimental to their development. They might not be very favorable with their access to education, and also the fact that they do not, I don't think a girl below the age of 10 can be told it is good for you to have a part of your body removed. I think for me it's an invasion of privacy of the girls, and the anti-FGM law wanted to protect that. That doesn't mean, like Dr. Jebi is saying, that at the age of 19, the same culture can actually force you through stigmatization, people laughing at you, marriages being at stake, and you feeling like you have to go through FGM so that you can gain acceptability in the society. I don't think that is freedom. So we have seen a lot of women, yes, going for FGM, but what are the reasons? How can we actually verify that they are doing it out of their own will and no pressure at all from the society? I would find that very difficult to believe, and I think I would want her to prove that to us, that it is really out of their free will. A child of 8 years old, how can she make a decision that she has to go through FGM? I don't think so.
All right, Lashore, you work with communities. You are a champion against FGM. From your experiences with all of the women that you have seen who have gone through the cut before, you are better placed to explain to us that this is not just a medical procedure. There's a lot of culture, some say negative culture, that is attached to the practice of FGM. Tell us more.
First of all, to react to the petitioner and get facts and myths that I can, some of them that has already said. Number one is, this is a very emotive issue, and it's a very sensitive issue, and it's an issue of public concern to the communities, to the survivors, to the development partners who are on the ground, because the gains that have been made, if this law is legalized, will go down the drain. Number two, I think there is a mix of issues by the petitioner. When she talks about FGM and girls not able to get jobs, I think she's missing gender inequalities in society that are, of course, cited to be brought by FGM practice. So you cannot really compare gender inequalities and say they should be employed in the army and all that. The key to that is girls should be able to access education. And once they get to access education, then they can be able to get opportunities of employment.
Okay, Charles, I want to stop you there because I'd like you to explain a little bit, you know, what happens when a girl undergoes the cut and what sort of opportunities that she is denied after undergoing the cut?
One of the things that girls are denied is their dreams. And this is very important. Girls have dreams. They want to become doctors. They want to become nurses. They want to become teachers. They want to go to parliament. And that is denied with FGM. Because once you go through FGM, then you'll not be able to continue with school. It means that early marriage will follow. Because FGM is a key, it's a license to all early marriage, teenage pregnancies in our society. I want to look at Shelimo. Shelimo is a case study. Shelimo herself was able to go to parliament and ran away from FGM. And we had a woman in parliament that other ladies and girls can be able to see. Who says that a woman cannot lead? Who says that they cannot be in leadership positions? She was able to help come with this act. If the girls again are circumcised, the implications are they drop from school. There are schools that we still, for many, many years, you'll go to a school and you'll be able not to get girls reaching class 6, 7, or 8. Girls are so many from class 1, 2, 3, 4, practical. But when they start going class 5, 6, you find girls not in class. So there's the issues of dropouts, there's the issue of early marriage, and transition is also affected.
Right.
These girls cannot transit to the next level.
So what you're saying is that this goes beyond a medical procedure, as it were, and that this has a lot of negative cultural practices that are tied to the act of FGM?
Correct. That FGM is not just an issue of the cat. There are many, many issues of FGM. FGM is an education issue. FGM is a gender issue. FGM is a rights issue. It's a human rights issue. It's also a cultural issue. So it's not only, it should not be looked as only the arm to the girl.
Right.
Because after the FGM, the effects are numerous. And some of them are life-threatening. Because you are circumcised as a girl, but later when you are married, then you put yourself at a life-threatening situations. You know, emergencies.
Right.
Look at our facilities in these rural facilities. They always have emergencies. And that's why partners are very key to really strengthen health systems by making sure that the doctors there, the nurses, are able to address some of these issues. And deaths happen. Deaths happen in these communities.
Yes, yes, they do. Matters arising, health matters arising from FGM and health complications that come up as a result much later in life for these young girls who undergo the cut. Stay with me, Mercy and Charles. We have a lot more to talk about on this issue. And Charles has brought up the issue of the medical aspect, and we'll be taking a look at that. After the break, we'll be hearing from our medical correspondent, Dr. Mercy Korir, on this issue of FGM. It's back up in our faces once again. It's a conversation we're being forced to have, thanks to that case that is in court in Machakos. We'll be right back, right here on The Big Story.